Welcome back to our Jesus Walks podcast. And my name is Martin, and I'm Gothenburg, and joining me from Bergen is Arnt-Jakob. And today we are missing our friend Marcis, but he had to, actually to go to London to record a record. So that's why we're left alone, just you and I. But good to see you, Jacob.
Yeah, good to see you too, Martin. Very good and fun from Marcis to go and do this music recording in London. He seemed like that they had a good time and arrived well. So
that's really good. So today we are going into our discipleship track, and we're gonna talk about how to bring the kingdom of God. And last couple of episodes we've been focusing on words, how to speak and how to share, and now we're gonna move into about our actions or works, so that's what we're gonna focus on today. So what's your thought about this?
Yeah, like when we say actions of Jesus, it's almost like his kind of scandalous actions in a way, the way he was different, and the way he acted towards people in a way that was so scandalous and full of grace or something that it kind of shocked the environment and impacted the people he met. So it's like that direction.
It is. And I think this theme is a bit tricky because in our societies we have a quite strong like attitude of value of like helping people out, helping the poor. We have like a society that is helping out people in need, and no matter what kind of beliefs you have or faith, you are in a having an attitude of like helping out or sharing. So it's so easy that this is just that we as Christian is doing like the same, but we are Christian. And I think that's one of the things that we want to add today. See how can we be acting more in a revolutionary way as Jesus did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's our longing.
Yeah, it is. It's a very interesting topic, and we will look to the Bible. We'll see a bit what we have been experiencing with Jesus ourselves as well on it.
Yeah. But so what do you have for examples, Jacob, as trying out to be about this?
Yeah, no, I was thinking a bit about it. We talked a bit, Martin, before we started to record here, just like a short recap on that. But just like one example that I've seen kind of quite recently from life here of kind of how Jesus relates to people. Because I mean, when you walk with him, and if you listen to the Holy Spirit, you can captivate his way of relating to people, not just the way you think you should do it so that it should be Jesus-like, right? That's very hard, like in a religious way. But if you can connect to him and you can hear him and be led by him, you can actually relate like him to people, right? And represent him. And I think that's the key in Jesus Walks, that we walk with him and he lives through us, not just that we live a religious pattern or something, right? So one example for me coming up first is that I was at this high school here in Bergen in Norway, and I was going to be in a class, and they would ask me all kinds of questions about the Bible, about Jesus, about God, and it was set up in such a way that they call it like that you are being kind of barbecued as a Christian. So it's like they can go at you with whatever they've got. So usually when you come in, you sense a bit about the climate in the class and everything. And this time it was actually like a dancing class. So it was a specific focus that they had for dance, those students, and most of them were girls, and quite soon I understood that this thing about the gay and lesbian relationships and this topic was like a big one. And I also understood that there were several people in the room that were in kind of especially lesbian relationships. And so they kept asking about those things. So I was like standing there and I was trying to just ask God, you know, what to say, how to relate, of course, trying to love people and also be truthful, just like Jesus was, right? Like the grace and the truth. So I was very honest. I want to be honest because that's really a way to love people. So I told them what the Bible says and try to do it in a kind of a good way, whatever, you know, but it's like, okay, how did this go? You know, it's kind of hard to know. But what was interesting was that straight after we were done, there is this girl that comes and approaches me and she's really happy and she comes to thank me. And I was like, interesting. And then she comes and presents herself and she says that she is in a lesbian relationship. And she just wants to thank me because I had been so open and that I had answered kind of all of her questions, she said. And I was like, okay, that's nice to hear. And then she keeps talking and says that for years she has been trying to talk to different kind of priests and pastors and stuff and come with her questions, right? And when she was like 14, she wanted to be confirmed in church, but she felt that it wasn't for her because she had these lesbian feelings. So she kept away from it because she felt it wasn't for her, right? So she stayed out of it. And those times she had raised her questions with somebody, they wouldn't answer her somehow. A priest, for example, would just kind of not answer her questions and stuff. So it had been difficult for her, and she felt like she was like outside of the church, you know. So she was just so thankful that I had answered all these questions, and eventually, you know. And then we had this very beautiful talk, and then I just pondered with Jesus, okay, what do I say? What do I do now? And then, but she was really open. So I told her in the end of the talk that I just told her that I would just like to say to you, first of all, I told her just how much Jesus loves her. And I really felt it like so deeply. And I just told her, and I saw that, you know, this impacted her. And then I was led to say to her, I told her, just leave and put away all kinds of like religious commandments or moral, ethical questions that you have heard about when it comes to God, when it comes to Jesus, you know, all of it, all the like stuff from the Bible, commandments, just forget everything and just leave it. Just forget about it. I told her, just don't even think about it. Just leave it totally off, you know, and then go home and just simply do this. Just tell Jesus, I want to meet you. And then I told her, and he will tell you everything you need to know, I told her. And I saw this totally new hope and joy came in her face. Suddenly there was actually, she could come inside, you know. There was a place for her. She had been outside for years and never saw herself as even, you know, and suddenly I just saw that she understood that she could go and talk to Jesus, you know. So this was just like a simple example from my daily life with him.
But I think that's probably the key of it, that like having that encounter with Jesus, because if it's just good actions but not Jesus in them, we won't have any. It's not the radical love, or it's not any transformation. It's just a short-term help, but it's not anything that could transform in someone's lives. It's not that it's not that radical, but when we compare to how Jesus lived it out.
It's like he more speaks into who they are as a person, right? The deeper identity, and meets them in the vulnerable place where they have felt like an outsider, where they have felt they couldn't be part of this community, where they were not good enough, they were an outcast, you know. And then so this girl really had felt like an outcast to the church, but I just told her, forget about the church, you know. Jesus actually wants to meet you. He loves you. You can meet him. He will tell you everything you need to know.
And I think that's also the like first things first. I was just thinking about when Jesus is meeting the guy who's have leprosy, and we know that leprosy is you get infected if you touch anyone, so they had to be far distance, and they have a small bell so people could really avoid them, and so on. We know that. So when he has been sick for several years, we know that probably none has touched him for several years, because they won't get infected, and they will eventually die in the end.
Because that was way more dangerous than a COVID or something.
So the fingers start falling off, and the skin, and then at the end you die.
Horrible
so
disease.
That's really and no, you couldn't get good from it or at all. But the funny thing there is when Jesus is going to heal him, he's not doing as he usually does or often does. Is he speaking or doing something else? He it says that he first touched him and then says, be healed. So he really
that's beautiful.
He's meeting his the biggest vulnerability. Like, I haven't been touched. No one wants to touch me. I'm really an untouchable person. So when Jesus is touching him, he's saying so much more than yes, I want than just to be healed. He says that I'm willing to risk of getting this disease. I want to meet you in your hardest areas of your life. And he's not saying it's not about all who he is or what this man is called to follow or anything. He's just meeting him in a radical love in his biggest need, and I think that's really something.
So wonderful. It's really wonderful. I've been noticing myself, just like another example. I've been noticing, especially sometimes ministering to men or to young men or old men or whatever, but that often there can be a real woundedness in terms of the lack of having a father who loved them in our society, who put words to it, or who wasn't there, or who was very harsh, or so it's something lacking, something distorted. Or men that just have been through so much tough things in life, and they've been trying to fight to survive. They've been through all kinds of kind of failures in life, let's say, that they feel like a failure, and especially if they were Christian and they feel that they should have it all together. And then we can talk and we can pray, but actually the biggest transformation sometimes that I see is actually if I go and I give them a hug. And then I hold around them for maybe 5 minutes, or even longer, 10 minutes. And I feel God is just like, just keep going, and they actually change through like a physical embrace, because that is what expresses actually the Father's love that they actually really need. And they have to be strong. They can't show weakness, and they cry and they cry. And I just feel like the strange uncomfortable thing of hugging a guy for 5-10 minutes, right? And people even looking at it, but I just feel God is saying, who cares? I'm healing his heart. So it's
but isn't it here that we are onto something, that it's these odd actions that really break barriers and are out of sense, that is like one part of the sign of the Jesus actions, and what we are called to. I also just reminded about a friend who's leading a church, and they ask God, how can we through our actions show people that he loves them, he's generous, he wants good things for them. This was in Norway, by the way, and he felt that it's a bit tricky in Norway too, because people, they have all they need, and we can't really, how can we serve like the Norway? So they had they had a system of praying every time they went shopping groceries, that the person in front of them in the line wouldn't have money on their card, or having some kind of bank issue, so the card isn't working. So they says, yeah, I can take it on my card. And they are doing this as a church regularly. So I heard about a lady working as a cashier, and when this person from the church said, yeah, I can pay, and the lady said, whoa, are you also in that church who pays other people's food? Because that's also a real odd way of acting. You don't do that in our society. You don't, and you don't do it regularly. But that's like over the limit actions that really show something.
Yeah, I also notice, like, if you pay for somebody like that people get very uncomfortable, because it's like their like finances in our society is like this kind of private sphere. So even if they don't need your help, if you go and you help them for no reason, it is actually really kind of provoking in a very nice way, you know. But Martin, what about yourself? What's your experience with this? You have any examples from your life that you are thinking about?
Yeah, I was thinking about one situation here in Gothenburg, when we lived in an apartment in the city, and above us we had an Icelandic couple that I've been hanging out with. The guy, sometimes he worked from home and I worked from home, so sometimes we had lunch and so on. And we had conversations about faith or church, but it was so clear that we didn't really get into the gospel. We talked more about church or church history or church behavior, but not so much about Jesus. But then he texted me one like a Tuesday at lunch and says, yeah, we have this kind of, he had a picture of a bug, and he says, do you know what kind of bug this is? Because on Iceland they don't have any small bugs apparently. And I helped him Google up this, and that was a bug who ate the wool, and they had a lot of wool clothing, so they needed to freeze all that wool to kill the bugs, and then they had to put it in like this vacuum plastic bags, so the bugs couldn't get in. So they had bugs, and he was really so, okay, so where do I buy a freeze, and how do I? He was and they don't have a car. So I said, yeah, you could take my car and go out, and I can tell you where to buy a freeze. And he says, I'm sorry, I have never driven in Sweden. I can't, I don't dare to drive. So I said, okay, fine, I'll drive you around. So we went around buying this kind of plastic bags, and then going finding secondhand this freeze, and that was a really odd experience, because we ended up some kind of junkyard behind some kind of industrial area, and we really felt driving in there that this is the place we're going to get killed, because it was from a thriller movie, the setting. But we survived, and we get this secondhand freeze for him. And on the way back to the city, and we have been out for a couple of hours driving on this Tuesday afternoon, and he says, isn't it a bit odd for a neighbor to just drive around another neighbor in the middle of the day buying these things? Don't you like have a work to do? Or and then I said, but the one that I'm following, he says, love your neighbor as yourself, and therefore this is natural for me to taking this afternoon off, just driving around and trying not to get killed and getting this freezer and so on. So suddenly in this kind of unnatural behavior, we got into this gospel, that then he saw the connection between my faith and my actions in a really clear way. in a quite an ordinary way, not getting killed.
Yeah, right. But it is so amazing, this thing about kind of, when Jesus surprises people, takes them off guard. And like I remember once I was on an airplane and on my way to Finland, and then there was this whole big kind of bandidos motorcycle gang that entered the airplane, like 80, 90 people, I think. And they were really wild, like so that it was so much noise on that airplane, and they were drinking, and it was really like that. And then I sensed I was supposed to talk to one of the guys, and it turned out that he was the leader of the gang. And then I met with him, and then somehow also how Jesus spoke into his life was interesting, because I actually felt that he needed a different language, So I actually told him, like, if I kill you, I told him, if I kill you, what will you be left with? Will that bandidos kind of mark help you, if I take your life? And then I told him, like, but if you kill me, you can't really take my life. I have I have eternal life. I live with Jesus. You can't do anything to me. I told him. And that was the message that got to his heart. And after that, he changed. He became totally quiet, and he told me also he had a praying grandmother, and he was totally kind. And later when I met him, it was just very like humble, like very interesting, like totally different than what you would have thought. Like it's nice to go on a missionary journey and come home testifying to your church that you threatened to kill a man, and that was the way you shared the gospel. So sometimes it's surprising, right?
It is, and I think that when we look at Jesus here, he's so often doing the unexpected things, but also he's doing it in such a revolutionary way that people can't really resist him. Because for example, a lot of us have beggars around us, and a normal attitude is giving a few coins, and then you have done your thing, and people get a sandwich at the end of the day. But when we're looking at Jesus, what he's doing, he's really going over the edge all the time, like Zacchaeus.
Tell me about Jesus.
But I'm thinking about the Zacchaeus. He's sitting in the tree. He's a Jew. He's a tax collector. He's taking too much tax, so the Jewish people don't want to be friends with him. He's stealing
their money as well as taking money to the Romans.
Working for the Romans. So on every way, he's so probably he doesn't have so much friends. Maybe totally. So he has money, but don't have the friends or that kind of setting. And and what Jesus is doing is saying that, I'm coming to your place and having dinner at your place tonight, and really affirms the friendship and says, I want to be friend with you. And he's doing it publicly. So everyone who's hoping that the big Jesus will come to me and having dinner at my place, he's going to that, the worst of the worst. And he's not telling him, you need to change your life and then I will come. He's just coming and having a good time with his friends. And then as a result of that, Zacchaeus says, I need to change my life. I will pay back the money that I've stolen, and etc. etc. So he's doing it on a real radical way, not just saying a kind word, or just doing something. He's doing it like full time when he's doing it. I think that's also the big difference is like comparing giving a couple of coins to someone who's poor, but and doing this doing this kind of revolutionary actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, as he says, Jesus says, that there's not the healthy who needs a doctor, but the sick ones, right? So he goes out there actually with a perspective, not on kind of getting a lot of followers and becoming kind of like famous, or having the most resourceful people joining his church. Actually, like he's actually going out to heal the sick people, the people that needed to be restored, the broken, right? That is really what he's doing. And like you say, that he crosses these social boundaries that are like really going to the outcasts, and probably also not just going to our society's kind of homeless people or something, because I think this is more like the socially outcast, right, Martin? I mean, those people didn't want to touch, or didn't want to, that was kind of shameful even to be with them, right? More like that. So in this society, in the Jewish society, I mean, the thing about becoming unclean was this thing, this purity rights, and so I mean, so what he does about, like, talking to women, or like letting a woman kiss his feet, sitting at the table in the house of a Pharisee, with all these religious people around, and this woman who's seen as a prostitute comes crying and kissing his feet. Can you imagine, even today, if you have a woman that's not your wife laying there at the table at your church kissing your feet for a while? It even for us, it's and for them it was much worse, because they couldn't even hang out, the different sexes, or it was much more order in how to relate, and he was a rabbi on top of it, and she was a prostitute in their eyes, so it is really like scandalous.
And I think I heard someone ask this rhetorical question, that Jesus get a lot of complaints about who he hang out with. He get a lot of criticism. When did you last time get criticisms for who those you're hanging out with?
That's a good question.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Most of us maybe get behind the school building in high school and have a cigarette, and that was the worst thing. We hanging out with the older kids. But I have a friend who's living this out in a quite radical way, because he's living in they moved into a house, and one of the neighbors turned out to be one of the leaders of the Nazist party in Sweden.
Okay.
So they are.
This is
the
interesting.
government want to ban them. They are just a couple of hundred, and they are. But real hardcore. And that family, they are totally excluded from everything. No kids. Other kids are allowed to play with their kids. They have a party at the street in that neighborhood every year, but that family isn't invited, etc., etc.
Okay.
But my friend,
because of their because of his political views and ethnic views and stuff.
So you don't talk. You don't even talk to that kind of people in our society. So the first time I met them as they were at when my friend's youngest son got baptized. They were at the party, and we sat at the same table. I didn't know at all of them, and he's and when my friend he had a birthday party, that's extremely funny. We were 12 men at the party, in the same ages, and my friend, he's a priest as well, so I think we were 7 priests, and then 4
priests.
7 priests, 4 like Christians with other guys, and then this Nazi leader. So we had a good barbecue party, having and
the guy he enjoys this, or he's happy for this,
because he is expelled from all social networks without his party.
Right.
No,
exactly.
he's never invited to anyone else. And But the funny thing is, my friend get a lot of complaints. How can you have your kids playing with his kids? How can you invite him to your place? He's he wants to, he has this and these views, and I think, that's on a revolutionary way of doing it. Because I think when we are talking about, especially the outcast, we have two kinds of outcasts in our societies. We have the outcast that everyone applauds when we are working with, like the prostitutes or the homeless people. Everyone says, it's so good that you do something for the homeless. And then we have these kind of people, like the Nazis or the sex offenders or the pedophiles, or and no one would like to or the Islamists trying to bring an Islamist and a pedophile to your friend's party, and you will see how easy it is. So I think that's now we're talking about the real radical attitudes of acting.
Oh, it's interesting, really interesting. I'm just thinking as well, like, because I think when you move in on that, you also get to know God's heart, right? And I think that's the dream we have, even on this podcast, that we can be these kind of people, Jesus people, who can kind of relate like he does, and be his kind of arm in this society, in a sense, like. But and it's so much fun to walk into this area when you kind of leave behind your fears and actually step out with Jesus, and then you meet Jesus in the process. Like, I remember I was in Oslo, and I was on the street because there was some kind of political thing I was into at that time. So I was working, and I was on the street actually talking to people about like a new law being passed. And it was actually like there was like a change of the marriage laws in Norway. So I was on kind of conservative side and stuff like that. And we had something called Blitz in Norway, like in Oslo. It's like this youth anarchist group that they have done a lot of demonstrations and social disobedience, like this punk group that was kind of famous for being so totally crazy and stuff before, especially. And they have their own house in Oslo, like this kind of place. And so they were coming, and they basically had taken our flyers and then they had copied them, and then they had changed them, and they went giving out flyers that was exactly the opposite message of what we had, just for fun, or just to mess with us, and stuff. It was just super hilarious, but they were pretty good at it, so I was impressed. So they come, and several are in lesbian relationships or gay relationships, and they are the total opposite, and they come to mock us, basically, just like that. But what happens, of course, is that my heart really breaks for them, So God's love for these kids just really got to me, these teenagers. So I just left everything, of course, and started to talk about them and their lives and stuff, and so we became friends. And they wanted to take me to their house, this Blitz house, this huge place with all these hangouts, and they took me in as their friend, right? Because I talked to them about God's love for them and stuff. And we were in there, and they were inviting people over and everything, and we were talking. And then in the end, we were thrown out by the management of the house because we talked about Jesus. And then they told their own people in Blitz. They said, if you throw out this guy, we're out of here. If you throw him out, we will leave too. So everything is like turned upside down with Jesus sometimes. It's just super interesting.
It is. And I think this is it's also headlights a bit about Jesus had a lot of critics from the religious leaders, from the religious establishment. And I guess that we could be facing the same thing, because we have really a box of how to act as a Christian. You give some coins to the homeless, and you're doing this, but this kind of a more of a radical living out action based faith when we are trying to break this boundaries and really show God's love, we will get criticism from our own. Christians will criticize us. I think that's also one thing we need to bear in mind, because that kind of criticism is the hardest, because when the people who don't believe as us are criticizing us, yeah, that's fine. But when our own friends and church leaders or small group people are criticizing us, that's so much harder. So that's also one thing I think it's wise to bear in mind, that that's been the situation all over church history, that it's often that we are getting criticisms from our own, and we need to be prepared from that as well.
That's true.
Yeah, we are almost out of time, AJ. Do you have any final thing we need to say?
Just like when we talk, I just realize how amazing Jesus is. He is a real, like a revolutionary of love in a very, very profound way somehow. And the amazing thing is that he can kind of touch people in any sort of situation, or so many different kinds of people. He kind of gets through to people in such an amazing way. So I'm just fascinated by that, and I just want to learn more. I think I want to live this life, So that's what I'm kind of left with today.
Yeah.
What about you, Martin?
Yeah, I was just reminded about the woman at the well of Sychar in I think it's John 4, where you can read about that. But he really breaks so much of the social barriers in order to get to her. And my reputation as a rabbi, me being a Jew, meeting you as a Samaritan and you as a woman, it's so many boundaries. But I think the profound part in that is when he asked her can I give me water, he says. And back then you brought your own like barrel to put out up the water from the well to drink of. So that's when she's saying you don't have anything to put out the water of. She knows that the only way that he could drink is from her, and she knows that he will be unclean if he drinks from her, because she's unclean. So when he's saying, by saying that, he's saying, yeah, I'm willing to risk my reputation, and I'm willing to be unclean in the religious way, just in order to meeting you and want to be friend with you. So I really want to identify with you. So he's not in a distant relationship or a distant attitude with her. He's really getting in close, as with the leprosy man. And I think that's so that's really revolutionary, and that's I think that's the challenge for us. How do I really get in close in the middle of the needs of people around me, and not just putting a coin in someone's hat at the street.
Yes. It's beautiful. It's like love moving into those uncomfortable places and bringing the healing and the freedom.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we wrap up there, and thank you for joining us. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to continue this topic, but then from a leadership perspective. So bye-bye, and thank you, and God bless.
Yeah, God bless you guys.